Happy Mother's Day. We're going for another walk. Thank you. My mommy has to work today, so we're gonna go and celebrate Mother's Day by celebrating the Mother Goddess of the Universe. Now, I was gonna go to church today, but I think it just started. So we're gonna miss it. I like to go there sometimes to kind of flush out my system. Sunday Mass is a really good place to do shadow work and dark work. Which I think is kind of the point of it. That's how I see it. It's a safe space to feel all the shame, guilt, and fear for all of the icky things that you do in your life. Ugh. I look forward to a day where I don't smoke anymore. Just quit. Well, I've done that before, but I made a deal with God and the goddess of the criteria that need to be met before I quit smoking. Not quit, but stop. No longer require the services of the plant medicine that are contained within smoking. Smoking, as I said before, is plant medicine. It's a form of. It's not much different than pot, but it's not bad in the sense that the effects are different. But I also look at coffee as plant medicine, so. I didn't get my mom a Mother's Day present. She said all she wanted was that my room was clean. Surprise with dinner. So I have to collaborate with my stepdaddy and my brother to see what the hell we're going to get her. Sure what's going to come out from it. I didn't really put much thought or effort into this. I didn't change my clothes. I'm still wearing the same clothes from yesterday. But I needed to get out of the house and come a little bit. We're taking a trip over to the labyrinth. See if I can clear my head. Because there's a lot going on in there. They're gonna go do some shadow work and dark work, which is kind of what I've been doing over the past couple of days. That's how I look at this. Something exorcising demons, or pulling them to the surface. I can have some fun. And plus, just getting shit out of my head. It's got to go somewhere, you know? Not that there's too much negative energy going on in there. I don't think. Who knows? I mean, I'm thinking about the videos I made this week and all the shit that I've been writing. I've been getting a lot of stuff out. Okay. Yeah, labyrinth. It's a walking path. So you walk in concentric circles. The idea is to get something in your mind. It could be a challenge, it could be whatever the fuck is on your brain. And as you walk, maybe something that you just need an answer to, or some kind of, you're trying to solve a problem. So what you do is you focus on that thing, and then you walk the path. And it goes from left to right to left to right to left to right. And the idea behind it is that what you're doing is you're taking that idea, and instead of focusing on it in a strictly, say, logical and reasonable way, in a black and white manner, you're shifting from your left to right brain, from the logical side of the brain to the abstract side of the brain. So when you're taking that idea, that concept, that problem, that challenge, that whatever the fuck it is, and you give it over to the left side of your brain or the right side of your brain, the abstract mind, you can start looking at it from different perspectives. It's not required. You don't have to do it. You can do it on your own. This is just a nice little center space. Fuckers. I don't really have anything to talk about. I mean, I don't know. I kind of don't feel like doing this today, which is why I feel like I have to do it. Plus, I kind of put it on myself to do this for as long as I need to. What's the end result? I don't know. I'll know it when I see it. It'll be that point. I see it in my mind. I know what it looks like. I see myself going, oh, all right, I don't need to do this today. So when we get to that point, that's a good sign. Why wouldn't I need to do it anymore? Got other things to do. So it's like, what do? Do you sit around and do nothing, or do you do something? No, do something. Like what? Why don't you record yourself walking around the labyrinth before you go over to the woods and see what comes up? Because maybe the act of walking the labyrinth is gonna pop the cork on something that needs to come up. I feel a little bit of nervousness, like in my stomach. It's like this little bit of anxiety. But I know where it's coming from. So the idea now is to kind of pull that out and see what it's trying to say. So what are you trying to tell me? I'm nervous about something. I know, I got that, but what am I nervous about? I'm nervous about what I don't know. As in, like, what's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen today? Is today going to go good? it's gonna go bad. What kind of value is gonna come out of today? What kind of value am I gonna add to the day? What kind of value am I gonna add for mommy? What kind of value is mommy gonna add to Derek? We're in the center, by the way. I'm seeing... What am I seeing? I'm seeing my mother yell at me for something. But that's an old child wound. I like being yelled at. Why is that coming up? Why would that come up? Probably because I feel like I'm going to be punished all the time. Every time I do something, I feel like I'm doing something wrong. Are you? I don't believe so. But I think it goes back to some childhood stuff. Getting in trouble for not necessarily doing something wrong. Not always from mom. One time one of my uncle's friends slapped me in the face because I didn't tie my shoes. Because I couldn't tie my shoes. I couldn't figure out how to tie my shoes. He got frustrated. I had a babysitter that sent me to bed because I wouldn't eat my pancakes. Grandmother once threw a bucket at me. But I did something to deserve it. I think I was teasing my sister. And then there's also school, too. I did get in trouble at school. A lot. I used to get into a lot of fights. So yeah, I guess some of that inner child trauma is coming up right now. I always get nervous on Mother's Day. I always feel like I'm gonna fuck it up or do something wrong. I didn't always have like the best relationship with my mom growing up. It wasn't until later in life that my mother and I actually really started getting close. So some of that's up there. I'm also the oldest of three, so I do have like first child syndrome. Where I feel I have to put myself at a different standard than everybody else. And then there's the thing with my grandmother. My grandmother just died. My father's mother died. My father's been dead for 8 years. His mother just died on March 18, 20. I say his mother, not my grandmother. I caught that. Our relationship was fairly strained at the end. I hadn't talked to her in 2019. Actually, I think it might have been right around now. Let's say the 14th. Yeah, I think the last time I actually saw her and talked to her was on May 11th or 12th of 2019. I know that because I found out I was divorced on May 10th. But I only found that out because she broke her hip and was in the hospital, and I I got told about it and I went to go see her. Which was when she told me that she had some mail for me. So I went back to her apartment and opened the mail and found out it was my divorce papers that said the divorce papers were just telling me that the divorce was 5 hours earlier that same day. Which is funny because like it was a week prior. It was literally a week prior. I had talked to my now ex-mother-in-law, and I said to her, like, "Am I divorced? Are we divorced? Like, what's going on with that? Is there a date? Like, what's happening?" And she said that she wasn't saying anything. She wasn't going to tell me that the paperwork was mailed to me. She believed what she was saying, even though I do remember, like, I remember hearing her voice and there was like, I could sense there was a slight hesitation in what she said. Which told me that she wasn't 100% certain. No more than 99.998% certain, but then also no less than 0.02% certain. So, I just remember thinking to myself, oh boy. Oh boy. 1 week later, I found the paperwork just on that day. Mother's Day. My ex-wife. Yeah, my ex-wife's a single mom. I'm estranged from my son. I haven't seen him in like 5 years. I tell myself that it's by choice from both of us. But I was also a twatty dad and husband. Why do I say that? I shouldn't say that. We all just didn't get along as well as we could have. But does that sadden me? Yeah. I have my moments. Like there's like this guilt, shame, fear thing that comes up from it. Like, oh my God, you haven't seen your son in 5 years? I hate saying that. It's like such a disgusting feeling. Because after he was born, he's like 15 now, but 15 and a half. But after he was born, like one of my things is like I don't want to be one of those runaway dads ever. But at the time, I was also going through a lot of shit where I did realize, like, I'm no use to him right now. I'm a fucking hot mess. I gotta get my shit together. So it was kind of like a sacrifice for the greater good. Which I think is, I don't know if it's hard for people to understand. It's hard for me to get. I mean, it's not like I say it, say it. I feel it sometimes. I'm like, that feels grimy just saying that. How do you abandon a child? I don't know. I don't see it that way, though. But that's also because I look at the world from my own lenses. I mean, it's not that I don't look at it from other people's perspectives. I do. That's hard. And it's not hard because, oh wow, this is a really difficult No, it is. It just is. Why? Because in order to see reality from someone else's perspective, it requires one to accept the possibility that they are wrong about what they think they have perceived, which can lead to intense bouts of guilt, shame, fear, depression, anxiety, disgust, self-loathing. But that's the point of shadow work. Are we doing a shadow work class? Is that what we're doing? Because people love saying that shit, but I don't know if people ever actually like really explain it. I don't know if anyone like ever seen it. Yes, I'm a child abandoner. I abandoned my family so that I can run off to live some wild, crazy dream of being a witch, and have left nothing but a path of destruction in my wake. Destroying my career, destroying the reputation of myself, losing my home. That was a big one. When I let my house go into foreclosure. That was a scary one. There was an idea behind it. I thought I had a good idea. I've been hearing lots of stories about where I'm from. I heard a lot of stories at the time of people who were foregoing their mortgage payments and just kind of like banking the money away and just letting their house sit in foreclosure for 4 or 5 years until finally they were evicted. But at the same time, banking up all of the money that would have gone towards the mortgage. And then taking that money and then either buying a new place or finding somewhere else to live. The idea of it was, I mean, it sounds grimy. But at the time, and it's been a while since I've been in the game, but at the time, there was a huge epidemic of people's homes going underwater, meaning that the selling price of the home was less than the mortgage that was taken out on the home, which put people into some really shitty situations because, and me for one as well, because I had a home loan that was, we took the loan out for $22,000, but we put $40,000 down, so technically it was a $180,000 loan. Which at the time, I didn't know anything about real estate or real estate laws or the intricacies that go into putting together a loan, a contract loan, a mortgage loan, and the contract that goes into it and the wording that goes into it. I was an uneducated buyer. And at the time, I wasn't really even into the idea, but her family was like, oh, well, we got a baby now, you just get a house, you should have a place to live. And then they threw us the 40 grand to put down. It was a really nice thing. And me, I was flighty. I just stuck around for him. And because I saw it as almost like a free ride. Like, all right, fuck it. They want to help us get a house? I'll go. I get to be included? All right. But then afterwards, that's what life just was. It was just living to work. Working 60, 70 hours a week just to maintain paying the bills, which I fucking hated doing, in a place I hated living in. Sometimes, not all the time. It was a condo. It was nice. But I'm the type of person where I need my alone time. And I didn't really know myself as well back then, too. I was much younger. That was when I was 27. I'm 42 now, 42 and a half. So it was almost like putting myself into a situation that I wasn't anywhere prepared for, which is a theme in my life, but that's kind of how you do it. I mean, made it work for like 10 years. So I think in that respect, like, that's a long time. That was a good run. But things change over time. I mean, people change, situations change, thoughts change, beliefs change. And eventually, I realized that all the energy I should have been putting into myself and creating my own sovereign means of sustaining life, I was giving that all away to people that I was working for. And then on top of doing that, I was giving all of my life there, and I'd be married to my jobs more than I was married to my wife. Which made me feel like shit to begin with, because it's like, I need to be there for them. Why the fuck am I here with doing this? Like, this doesn't make any sense. So eventually I decided, like, I have to start my own business in some way, shape, or form. And I didn't have anything in mind of what I was gonna do. Plus, I dropped out of college for meth. And then I dropped out again for a job. But that job ended up being a 13-year career, turned into a 13-year career, which is what helped fund our lives at that time. But again, it was like, the more that I started to see my own value grow, the more that I started to realize, like, I'm too good for this. I deserve better. They deserve better. They deserve a better version of me. So then that's probably around the time when I stopped drinking, because I used to drink like every single day. Out of the 13 years we were together, I'd say that I was drunk probably about like 80% of the time, 70 to 80% of the time. I mean, there was one whole year that I drank every single day. Rum and Cokes, Captain and Coke, or Sailor Jerry and Coke. That's my medicine. Plus, growing up, I was a escapist. Books, movies, video games. So when I wasn't at work, I was consuming myself with those things and not really consuming myself with my family, who I didn't have a relationship at all with. They didn't know anything about me. They only knew what they saw on the surface. They didn't know what was going on inside. I never talked about it, because talking about feelings and shit, that's not something I knew how to do. Until until 2017, when I first started practicing. But sometimes I have a tendency of saying a lot. That doesn't always go over very well. But at the time, I was pleased with myself in the sense that I was actually doing what I was doing, which normally would require me to have alcohol, but I was doing it without alcohol, which was impressive. And then after like a 13-year marriage to alcohol, I didn't drink. I drank 3 times in the matter of like a year, which was amazing. But when I first took my 2-month break, which was like, I think it started August 27th, 2017. About 2 months later is when I like had one of those like, whoa, what the fuck did I do with my life? Uh-oh, ruh-roh, we gotta fix some shit. What the hell? See, one of my biggest concerns, especially in the industry that I was in, was like, I just happened to get in because of a friend. I didn't have an education. At that point in my life, the most experience I had with anything was playing video games, and I didn't know how to make money playing video games, how to get people to pay me to play video games. So, but it was around that time. But I've always had a healthy thirst for conspiracy theories. and all things weird. I was introduced to tarot cards when I was around 8, between 6 and 8. Well, tarot cards, magic, astrology, spirits. So, but I was warned, my grandmother warned me, she's like, don't ever touch these cards or you'll be cursed. I don't know if she was talking about just her deck, because my grandmother had a tarot deck, or just in general. So throughout my life, I never went down that path. I'd skirt the edge of it, but I'd never actually dip my toes in the water. Not until I was 37, and life just kind of led me down that way without even realizing it, which was fucking cool. Which is what's triggered the spiritual awakening in me, which I thought was actually me going insane from diving too deep into the occult. Which I remember like even thinking one day, like, oh fuck, I fucked up my brain. This is why people say don't touch this shit. God damn it. How the fuck am I gonna explain this? Now mind you, I was always an odd man. I had cut my wife's vinyl bumper sticker that said, "It's not easy being married to an odd man." But that's the way. I mean, I've always been weird. Weird. And it just wasn't until I used to not always suppress it. It depended on the situation, really. I mean, I've always had like a really big ego, so that's not a thing. I mean, that's always been a thing, so that's just like common knowledge, but it was some of the weirder shit that I mostly kept to myself, like when I would see visions and get glimpses of the future and just have these ideas that, what? Why are you thinking about that right now? But considering where I am in life right now, I can look back on those times and go, okay, I can see why I was like that. I understand exactly why I was like that. I know exactly, I have a really good idea of what was happening inside of me at the time. Well, inside and outside of me. I mean, for most of my life, I was an atheist, but I would declare myself as an atheist, but it wasn't, I said open-minded atheist because I don't know what I don't know. My father taught me something once. He said, be careful whose name you're taking in vain because you don't know if there's actually somebody listening or not. That kind of hit me. I was like, oh, that's a really good point. Thank you. But as time progressed throughout 2018, it just got more and more loud. I started to hear it more and more. And by hear it, I don't mean literally like audibly hearing it, more like clairaudience. You hear it in your mind, in a sense. There's voices, yeah, but the voices put on the mask of other people. Or they put on masks of different aspects of myself, my inner psyche. But I mean, mostly like that inside voice that tells you to make a left instead of a right. And then it turns out that if you made the right, your life would be completely different than the way it would have been, than the way it is because you took a left. Does that make sense? Where it's like, how did you know to do that? How did you know to say that? How did you know to turn that way? Why is it that I just had a thought to go this way and then that thing happened? What the fuck? You know, there's like a what the fuck moment. Like, what the fuck? Like you're thinking of somebody right before they call? That's a popular one. That's a really popular one. Or you see something in your mind and then it happens in front of your face and you're like, what the fuck? I literally was just thinking about that. Oh my God. That's another popular one. Someone brings up something that's in your mind right this moment. Holy shit, that's funny you say that because I was just thinking that. Literally just now. How the fuck? coincidences. Do you ever read the Celestine Prophecy? I'd recommend reading the Celestine Prophecy. That book is like, it breaks it down fucking really good, and it's written in adventure story form, so there's not really any dogma thrown into it. It's just giving the 10 basic insights that go into a spiritual awakening. And I don't believe everyone is going to have one. I could be wrong. I think that has something to do with what rapture is that some people some people are just not going to be able to get it. There's going to be two groups of people. There's going to be the people who don't get it, and there's going to be the people who get it. The people who do get it are going to kind of go into their own separate reality that the people who don't get it don't get, because they're going to have their own reality. But the most interesting thing is that the people who don't get it, their reality, and they don't realize it, is dependent upon the reality that the people who do get it get, that they live in. It's like, think of it like a reality bubble within a reality bubble. Now here's the thing though, the people who don't get it, those people will probably say that their reality is the most dominant of the realities, and that it's the people who, quote, get it, that are living in a la-la fantasy land. But at the same time, the people living in the la-la fantasy land will say to the people who believe they live in objective reality, they'll say, well, no, my reality is the objective reality. My subjective reality is my objective reality. Your objective reality is subjective. And you are the one who's living in a fantasy. And then there's going to be debates over who has the most real reality. Well, that's where like the whole idea of the Antichrist and the Moshiach and the Second Coming come into play, because it's like, all right, well, who's going to settle this? Oh, all right, well, God and the goddess are going to send someone down that can hear both sides of the story and then explain it in a way that both sides can understand it, so they both go, oh, shit, I never thought of it like that. So because so here's a good example, right? So a new thing that came to my attention. The more that people do not believe in the power of Satan, the more powerful that the Antichrist will become, right? So what does that mean? If you don't believe in God, then you don't believe in Satan. If you don't believe in Satan, then you don't believe in God. You can't have one without the other. The other one confirms the other one's existence, but it's technically the job of the other one to blind the end user to the reality of, quote, God. Because that one lives in the shadows. It lives in the dark. That's why you don't know it's there, because it's hidden. It's hidden in plain sight. But if you can't see in the dark, but if you're not willing to go to the dark, then you're not going to be able to see the light. That's the thing. That's the tricky part. See, most people, they come out of the dark and they go into the light. That's where people have their spiritual awakenings, and they go fucking bonkers as shit. They start hearing voices, and reality isn't what it's supposed to be. You got people who think that they're kings and gods and Jesus. That's a thing that's going to start happening a lot. Well, it already is. You go to search around the internet, you'll find tons of people who call themselves Christ. Not necessarily Jesus, but there are many people that are having intense spiritual awakenings that have seen some shit, some shit that confirms to them everything that they've believed their entire lives, but were too afraid to admit to themselves. But they realized that it took them to have the experiences that they had, both good and bad, combined, in order to show them that their lives, that they were not as in control of their lives as they thought they were, which in a sense is supposed to take a bit of the burden off of you, because it's like, okay, well, if I was meant to do that, if I was meant to be that person, then I have nothing really to feel bad about. I should be happy about it, because it turned me into who I am today, and I love who I am today. And if I love who I am today, then by default, I do love aspects of who I was then. And if I love aspects of who I was then it's just a matter of then reevaluating the aspects of that person that I didn't like, and learning how to love that part like I love the part that I love. There's You are your own worst enemy, right? But there's a good line in the Bible, and I know they say that you can't improve on gospel, on the word, but I beg to differ. Well, maybe not even, well, yeah, you can call it improving. It's like a form of refinement. So let's say you can't improve the word, but you can refine it, right? So in the Bible it says, love thy neighbor like you would love yourself. But now here's the problem, is that the Bible doesn't teach you how to love yourself. It teaches you how to love God and Jesus, not you. As a matter of fact, whoever taught you to love yourself? Who's ever heard that like loving yourself is a bad thing? You got to be modest. You got to be quiet. You can't shine too bright, because then you sound cocky and arrogant, and you make people feel bad. So then it's just by default you start like beating yourself down, going, "Oh, I can't do this. This is stupid. This is bad. This is wrong." That's technically called the adversary, by the way. In Judaism, we call it the adversary. It's the dark half of the soul. See, in Judaism, it's a little bit different than Christianity, because Christianity is like a watered down version of Judaism, really watered down version. Like, in order to get the full grasp of it, like, you actually need to know how to read Hebrew and then not just take someone else's word for it, because the book is actually meant to be read by everyone individually. And then you're supposed to define it how you see fit. It's not even the Jewish Bible, to be perfectly honest. It's a book that the Jews adapted, that the people that we call the Jews now had adapted over the evolution of that particular philosophy, mindset, way of life. Way of seeing things, perspective. It's like, what people call religion, it's just a perspective. That's just one perspective on how to view the observable reality and to explain unexplainable phenomena that science itself can't actually explain in its current form. I say current form because, like all things, evolution is real. And it doesn't just apply to animals and plants and trees. It also corresponds with ideas, philosophies, religions. I mean, if you really look at it, the Torah is the oldest version of the Bible. The New Testament is the middle child, and then Islam is like the little kid sister. So another way to look at it is that each one of those tells a story that evolves into the next one, and it tells a timeline instead. It tells like if you look at it as a historical account, what you see is an evolution of the idea of God, of what it is, what it represents. So now in the Old Testament, the Torah, they teach you one version of it, how they saw it at that time. Now, there are still purists out there, the Orthodox Jews, who still follow that perspective on reality. Not that they're wrong, because they're right. They're absolutely right. Their reality, the conscious sphere of reality that they exist in, is real. Not everybody can see it, but everybody lives within it to one degree or another. Just like their reality lives in everyone else's reality to one degree or another. I'm not saying, see, the issue with religions and shit like that is that sometimes there's this dogmatic idea that your perspective on reality is the chief perspective that should be observed by all who are graced with its presence. But in real reality, people reality, human reality, alien reality, one idea is no better than the other idea, but what really counts is what you take away from that idea that will help you evolve your own ideas so that you can open your eyes to things that you weren't previously aware of, so that it enhances your world experience, because now you can see a little bit differently than you saw before, but that little thing that you woke up inside yourself, that little perspective, that new, like, view on reality, as small as it may be, if you really think about it, about how much that one little idea can like light a flame, and then that flame fucking spreads everywhere. In paganism, we have a rune for that. There's a rune for that. It's called Kanaz. It looks like a boomerang almost. And what it represents, the idea that it represents, the concept that it represents, because the alphabets of the gods, not just Hebrew, but the alphabets of Odin, the entity that we're familiar with as Odin, and the gods under his watch. And realistically, they weren't really gods. They were a different race that had godlike powers. What humans would consider to be godlike powers, like they're not gods at all. Like literally, how if you watch the Thor movie, that's literally how it is. That's how it's perceived. Yeah, I think it's that way. I don't think they're alive anymore. Even the Nordic gods, they had an end times called Ragnarok. It was the war of the gods, where all of the gods were killed, except for Odin's first son, who was resurrected to rebuild the world for the last two humans, because war engulfed the entire planet and everything was burned to ash and everyone died except for two people. But I like to apply like that idea that Jesus threw out there. It's like the first is the last and the last is the first. So if we look at it from an abstract perspective and like, all right, well, maybe these are just different interpretations of the history of that time, you can actually see a correlation between the end of Norse mythology, Norse history, Germanic history, and that of Israelite history. The one ends where the other begins. So and kind of what I'm getting at is like, consider the idea that maybe the last two humans of one book of myths and legends is the beginning, is the same point as the beginning of another book of myths and legends. But now when you follow back the origins of Christianity, like that's a big one too, because consider where Christianity came from. Constantine, the emperor of Rome, right? So check this out. Think. Prior to Christianity, the Romans were pagans. As far as we know, their chief god was known as Jupiter. His wife was Juno. He had a son named Mars, a daughter named Venus, a brother named Pluto, a brother named Neptune, and a father named Saturn. So Zeus wasn't even like the one true god. Like he was the son of another god. Saturn was known as the god of time. When he came to power, he was given a prophecy that one of his sons would overthrow him. So what he did was every time he had a baby, he would eat them. Until one day his wife had enough of it. His wife, well, in Greek history, her name is Rhea. I don't know what it is in Roman. Because here's the thing is, in Greek, now if we shift gears, because that's a really good segue, is that every single one of those gods that the Romans acknowledged came from Greece. Because in Greece, according to the stories that we know today, Saturn was known as Kronos. Jupiter was known as Zeus, Juno was known as Hera, Mars was known as Ares, Venus was known as Aphrodite. Now, I'm more familiar with the Greek version of those stories, that history. But what it said was one day that Rhea, she had a baby, a very special baby that she didn't want to give up. She was tired of her husband eating all of the children. He had a daddy issue because he did the same thing to his father. His father was Uranus, the god of the sky, the universe, the heavens, god of the heavens. But even he wasn't even the highest god. But his wife was Gaia. And they had, I believe, 12 children. These were called the Titans. But Uranus, like his son Saturn and his grandson Zeus, was given a prophecy that one of his children would overthrow him. So what he did was every child that was born, he would throw them into Tartarus, which is what eventually became hell. That's before it was known as hell. I mean, Tartarus is kind of like the hell of hell. That's where like the damned souls go. The damned souls that fucking like demons go to serve their sentence. That's real deep in the abyss, though. That's a scary place to go. Hell is one thing. Hell's for humans. Tartarus, that's where the really scary monsters go. Sometimes humans get lured that way because they love eating human souls. It's like candy to them. Ugh, that's a whole other thing. But one day, Gaia, she opened the gates to Tartarus, and she tasked her youngest son, Kronos, with taking out his father, who he hated. All of his children hated him because he locked them up. So one night, Gaia brought Uranus to bed, and after they were done with their thing, doing mommy and daddy business, Kronos came out of the shadows and cut his dad's dick and balls off with a sickle. And then he became the new ruler. And then he freed his brothers and sisters, and then they ruled over the world. That's the story. And then we get into Kronos being given the same prophecy that his father was, that one of his sons were going to dethrone him, which was the catalyst for him eating his children. Which eventually led to Rhea sneaking baby Zeus off to be raised by humans, and then putting a rock wrapped in blankets and presenting that to Kronos instead. And Kronos hated it because he didn't know any better. He was a titan. He was giant. This is a little ass rock, the size of a baby. But just like with his father, Kronos got so consumed with his power that he was completely blinded to what Rhea had done. And before he was even ready to prepare for the battle, it had already started. And about this moment is where he goes, fuck, I have a son. Time finally caught up with him. He was so stuck in the past that he couldn't move forward with his life. So it wasn't until he finally was ready to realize, to face his own arrogance, that his son came and dethroned him. Now, unlike the relationship between Saturn and Uranus. Kronos wasn't castrated. He just got his ass whooped out at Olympus, which then led to some other shit. Like it was called the Titanomachy, Titanomachy, which was the war between the gods and the Titans. When the gods defeated the Titans, it's about 10 years, I believe, is what it says. Which, kind of, if you want my opinion, corresponds with the idea of the Nephilim. If we consider that the Titans were, quote, watchers, they were the sons of God, Uranus, and Rhea did give one of her children to humans, which, in a sense, in an abstract way, we could say is gods interbreeding with humans. Is that humans raised a godchild that became a giant? Maybe not a literal giant, but a giant in the sense that he became a god. Now, after the Titanomachy, there was some shit that went down. Kronos left for Rome to spread the word, to spread the good word. Hi, I'm your god now. Which is where the Romans learned the stories of the Greek gods. I mean, keep in mind, this wasn't Greece then. We know it is Greece, but it wasn't Greece then. Greece is a word that we use to define the land mass where these events took place. Well, some of the land mass. For instance, Zeus once flooded the world to clean it off of humans because he realized that they were a failure. And to prove his point, he created the first woman called Pandora and then presented her with a box that he had his messenger Mercury, tell her, don't open that box. Don't. Whatever you do, don't open the box. But her curiosity got the better of her, and she opened the box, which unleashed all types of hell and darkness onto the world. But the part that most people missed, because they weren't privy to it, because everybody was too busy drinking and fighting and fucking and raping and killing each other, that there was a little special gift at the very bottom of the box. And Pandora didn't even realize until after everything was out and she shut the box, she heard a little voice in there, and it was called hope. So eventually, over time, she would have a daughter who would go on to marry the son of the Titan Prometheus. Prometheus was the trickster who stole the fire of Olympus and gave it to humans. As punishment, Zeus chained him to a mountain, and then had a giant buzzard that would come and eat his liver every day. So the buzzard would eat his liver during the day, and then over the night it would regrow. It would regenerate. And then the next day, the buzzard would come back and then eat his liver again. So he was just trapped in a negative feedback loop of the most agonizing pain that you can possibly imagine. Besides from a toasted pincushion, maybe. That's when you're getting raped from both ends, and then some sick fucks come along and then they start stabbing holes in you and start raping the stab holes. But this is all after they set you on fire. To the point that you're just a charred husk that can't die. But you feel everything. And then for all of eternity, you are the center from which all agony and misery come from. That's the toasted pincushion. While you're being raped from every possible angle by countless number of perpetrators who are laughing and high-fiving as your charred husk agonizes in pain, covered in shit, piss, and semen. And this is your reality for the rest of all of eternity. Because your pain and suffering is what energizes the universe to keep on going. Until you can learn to love it. Until you can learn to actually enjoy it. Which is the only way to free you. Free yourself. But that destroys reality. At the same time. But it also puts you in a position that you can create your own. Which is exactly what the gods did. They created their own realities. I'm your god now. That's what Saturn did to the Romans. That's what Zeus did to the Greeks. Hi, I'm your god now. Yeah, I just whooped the ass out of the old god, and now I'm the new god. Hi. Hi, little buggies. See, but the gods are fucked up. They see human beings as chess pieces. Their job is just to watch and observe. It's like, if you want to know the relationship between gods and humans, it's the worship aspect of it. That's a game. All right, who's gonna worship me the most? Do you want candy? Then you better tell me how good and pretty I am. Humans are entities. We're all psychic vampires to one degree or another, especially the gods. The entities known as gods, because they're not really gods. I mean, they can do magical things, but it's all... I mean, if we really dug into it, I'm sure we can find the science for how it was all done, eventually. The word human comes from a word. It means man from the earth. So humans do come from the earth. I mean, they are earth-based organisms, just like everything else on Earth. Terrestrial-based. I mean, yeah, no, we're carbon-based, I know that, but we're also terrestrial-based. You know, you don't see too many other humans out in space. Or maybe you do, and we just don't see them yet. I mean, I do believe in aliens, so... I've been getting introduced to various species of them over the past couple years. Well, several years. Well, couple decades. Started with those goddamn greys. But I think greys are just kind of like the entry point. They're like the gateway drug into the alien community. They're more like shape-shifting things. Because they're all very, like, they have a very uniform look to them. But at the same time, then you can kind of see, if you look at the other ones, you can kind of see how they all kind of could evolve out of that one idea. One proportional idea. But then let's link that back to fucking to Norse mythology, because those gods were really aliens. They actually were aliens. They lived on a different planet. They lived on a different world. Now, was that world located on Earth? And it was just their own little version of reality that they believed that they were? I mean, these fucking people thought that they were coming from the world of the gods to the world of man via a rainbow bridge. These people thought very highly of themselves. They wanted people to believe that they travel via rainbow. That's a pretty bold claim. And I'm not saying that they're wrong. I get it. I can see it in my mind. I've seen it in movies, but to put that much of a fucking halo around your head, like that's some balls right there. Like, if I came up telling people, like, yo, hey, where's your car? Where's your ride? Nah, I don't need one. I travel by rainbow, son. Like, what? This guy fucking around? But he's not fucking around, so it's like, So you're not really sure what to do. It's like, what, this guy really travel on rainbows? I don't understand. How the fuck do you travel on a rainbow? Exactly. It doesn't make sense until you can make sense out of it. But that's a nice thing about those Marvel movies is because it kind of shows it in a way that, yeah, I guess it makes sense. Sure. Okay. I'll buy that for $1. Who's to say that it couldn't work? Humans? Well, of course humans would say that. They wouldn't understand the technology that goes into the creation of that kind of technology. It's alien. It's literally alien technology. Just like Hebrew. Hebrew's an alien technology. Like if you ever try to study Hebrew, like the way that I've learned it, I'm in the middle of learning the biblical the academically biblical way of reading it. Not necessarily the way that it was read back when it was first written. Because it's a visual language as well as an audible one. But it's also a numeric one as well. Like it's got three dimensions to it. Which is what gives it life, because it has symbolic meaning, it has sound meaning, it has auditory meaning, and it also has oh, I just got an awesome idea. It also has the numeric values as well. But now, I mean, at the same time, and this just popped in my head while I was talking about this, which is why I got that little shit-eating grin on my face, is that it has a fourth dimension to it as well, in that it's visual. So typically with Hebrew, you read it from right to left, which is counterintuitive from today's modern perspective. We read from left to right. But now here's the thing, just because you read it right to left doesn't mean you can't read it right to left, left to right. Because it tells two different stories. I mean, it's the same story, but it tells it in reverse. And the idea behind the visual component of the language is that the picture paints itself in your mind. And what you're doing is by reading it forwards and backwards, you're reading it, it's almost like reading it fast forwards and reverse. So, so that it's you can scrub through the visual timeline of the story that it's painting in your head. Because each symbol has a picture to it, has like a subconscious image. And the idea is that your brain is going to apply value to those symbols. So for instance, the letter Vav, it's an arm. So what does that mean to you? Yeah, we got an arm, but also what does an arm do? It carries things, it moves things, it keeps us balanced. It can also reach for things, it can grab, it can point in directions, it can do a lot of things. So now what we're doing is we're filling up that value, that variable called arm, that symbolic variable called arm, and we're applying value to it. So now every time we see that glyph, the hieroglyphic, oh, Vav, that's an arm. What does arms do? And then we're going to see all these things of our arms doing things. Arms, they swing around. Ah, hi. Like that. Why is Derek teaching Hebrew? Why does Derek know how to teach Hebrew better than academia? That doesn't make any sense. No, it does. It does. It makes perfect sense. But you got to be me to see it. It's like one of those inside jokes that I laugh at myself about. It's like,